Happy Saturday. Welcome back to Let's Talk Broncos. I'm Brie Maestas here with Zach Seegers and Joey Richards. Guys, how are you?
I'm doing good. I am looking forward to this football game because it's a game the Broncos can win. That's what I'm excited about. I think this is a game the Broncos can win, right? Like, we don't. I'm not going to say the Broncos are a good football team because we're going to win. I'm saying that we have another bad football team we are playing, and the Broncos can win this one. It's a possibility. I'm not coming in here down and out about it. I think the Broncos have a chance. So I'm looking forward to it. It's just right around the corner tomorrow. No bad news.
Great minds think alike, and the exact way Joey's leading into this podcast, which I think is the right way, is the same way I opened my article, my preview article. This might be the last game this season the Denver Broncos are favored. Doesn't mean, hey, upsets happen all the time in the NFL. But this will be the last time they were favored. Their win-loss record doesn't matter all that much for their draft stock. It does, in the third round on, but not so much on that top pick. So screw it. Let's win some games. Let's make this a little more fun. They're not going to win out the rest of their stretch and, hurt their draft stock by 10, 15 spots or something. Let's just make this a little less embarrassing. Let's string together 3-4 wins. This is the easiest one left. Win it.
Yes.
I think that's where we get ourselves into trouble, boys, as we start talking about, this is the game they can win. And we've been saying that a whole lot this first half of the season. Although a lot of teams are looking different here. The Rams are not the team we thought they would be heading into this season. Cardinals as well. But the Raiders weren't either. And we saw how that one turned out. So I'm a little, I don't even know, scared, perhaps, maybe a little worried. Let's jump into injuries here. I threw up the Panthers initially. We can start there and talk about what we're seeing there. Then we'll jump into the Broncos injury report as well. How are you guys feeling about these Panthers injuries? Think they'll affect the game any?
Like they're looking at this one, and then we're about to get in the Broncos one. It's like what a stark contrast. Like this is like they have some players on here that are good. Like I'm gonna highlight Matthew Ioannidis. He's a really good defensive tackle. He's been one for years.
But there's a reason Washington let him walk. Like I think
a good D tackle though.
He was. I don't know if he still is, if I'm being honest. My thing is, like, yes, they're missing some pieces, and yes, it shows the disparity and injuries and like who's missing who. But the Broncos injury report, and just in terms of sheer length, I think it isn't that much longer. I think what this demonstrates in part, and there's a lot we've said about the Broncos lacking talent on their whole roster, and that's true. I think they're still a good bit ahead of the Panthers, and that's what's showing here. The Panthers don't have a guy like Justin Simmons or even like Garrett Bowles or, like they don't have or Javonte Williams or Tim Patrick or Jerry Jeudy. Like they don't have that list of 5-10 guys that are all on the roster, let alone missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Like they don't have like big names. I personally think Matthew Ioannidis is a pretty good player. But like Terrence Marshall, obviously former first-round pick for the Panthers, he hasn't been that productive in his career. Ian Thomas is a role player for them that has like done okay in his time. But you're right, Zach. They don't just have those big names that like the Broncos have, where it's like this guy plays a massive role on the team. They don't have a ton of those, and the Broncos do have a ton.
Corey Littleton is one name that stands out to me. He's out. Awesome player for the Rams a few seasons back. Signed a big free agency contract with the Raiders. Was a total free agency bust. I really am not up to date on what he's been doing in Carolina. But maybe he's a notable miss. But yeah, I feel like the Broncos are, I don't know, from an injury standpoint, it feels like the Panthers are in a much better shape.
The Panthers drop one QB to an ankle injury and receive one back from as Sam Darnold is set to make his debut here for the Panthers. We'll jump into the Broncos injury report next so we can suss out what we're expected to see here. Notables, KJ Hamler, Harris Jeudy, and K'Wan Williams out. And then respectively, Justin Simmons, Latavius Murray look like they should start here, both dealing with a knee and a wrist injury. Guys, what do you think? How do you think this bodes for the Broncos? They're receiving, some of their players back from injury, but they've got a ton on the injured reserve. We've been talking about it, and I think that's been the storyline of this season is injuries. How do you feel like this week is shaking out for the Broncos?
The biggest things that stand out to me are Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, because I remember the hype. Man, when they took Jerry Jeudy in the first round, KJ Hamler in the second, we're all sitting there thinking like the Broncos receivers issues are solved. And for a long time, right? That was the idea behind this. It was like, we don't need one receiver. We need two receivers. They drafted him straight out of college, gave him the first year. But to this point right now, I don't think either, and I'm a Jerry Jeudy supporter. I think he's a solid player. But is he living up to his draft status? No. Is KJ Hamler living up to his draft status? No. That's just like the simple answer to that. And a lot of that has to do with injuries. Like these are two common themes between these two players is they're on the injury report a lot. And I'm not saying it's their fault because injuries happen. It's one of the most physical sports there is. You're going to suffer injuries. But am I going to say that fans shouldn't feel disappointed that these two guys they had really big high hopes for aren't producing because of them? No, I'm also not going to say that. So I will say that it's a little disappointing. I am excited to see Kendall Hinton and Jalen Virgil. I think those are the Kendall Hinton, Jalen Virgil, and Brandon Johnson are kind of the names that are going to be sprinkled in there to replace them. But man, are they what we thought KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy would be? I don't think so. So it's a little disappointing for sure.
And I'll say this: I think Jalen Virgil can be KJ Hamler this year. He pretty much already has been. KJ Hamler has 7 receptions, and they're averaging crazy yards per catch. But he's got like 7 receptions. In terms of yards per route run, which we've highlighted a lot on here, he's the least efficient of the Broncos wide receivers, which is wild because despite only being picked 25 picks after Jerry Jeudy, he deals with none of that high draft pedigree criticism that Jerry Jeudy does on a daily basis in Broncos country. It's wild how, asymmetric that is. But yeah, I think Joey, you brought up a great point about both those players. The draft status will never escape them. I think they can both be good players, but the fact they were taken in elite player ranges, I think is always going to kind of cloud the conversation around him. It sucks that injuries continue to sideline their career because whenever they're on the field, we see how talented and awesome they are. It's to be clear, I'm not saying Jalen Virgil is the same talent as KJ Hamler. He's not. But in terms of what KJ Hamler has brought to this offense, which again is 7 receptions, touchdowns, something like 20 yards per reception, I think Jalen Virgil can get you 1 20-yard reception every other game. And that's what KJ's been in this offense. The Jerry Jeudy one is devastating, though. You could argue we all voted him offensive player of the year or MVP or whatever for the first half of the season for the Denver Broncos. Being without him is overall. I see a much healthier Denver Broncos team. DJ Jones playing this week, Mike Purcell playing this week, Jonathan Cooper playing this week, all on that injury report. What scares you about this Panthers offense is a rushing EPA per play that ranks top 10 in the league after the Christian McCaffrey deal. That run game is still churning. You've seen the Broncos eaten alive by ETN and eaten alive by Josh Jacobs in 2 of their last 3 games. Having DJ Jones, Mike Purcell, Jonathan Cooper all healthy, hopefully helps their efforts in stopping Deonta Foreman some.
Yeah, I will say about those 2 receivers, Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, they're probably our 2 best route runners and the guys that get open easiest. I will say that. So that
Totally.
that hurts them. Like if you're looking for, I always forget who said this, but your wide receiver room should look like a basketball team, right? You should have small guys, you should have tall guys, you should have all different sizes, shapes. And the Broncos are kind of missing an archetype. I think the guy that most suits that is Kendall Hinton, but I think it's a downgraded version of Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, right? Like I think these 2 guys are better than them better than him and more talented. I like Kendall Hinton a lot. He's a guy I like having on the team as a depth receiver, and he's going to be serving that for that depth this week. But does it hurt? I think it definitely hurts. I will say also, do we have
they feel like the foreign knockoff? Kendall
Yeah.
Hinton and Jalen Virgil feel like the Pokemon.
The the poorly stitched versions of.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
think we can all
The
agree on,
covers.
though, is the injectable energy that Jalen Virgil and Brandon Johnson could provide here to this Broncos defense. You got to change it up a little bit. I know I chime in all the time against too many variables here, but I think it's time for the Broncos offense to try to mix things up a little bit with their young talent. Obviously, still feeling the drought from Tim Patrick's absence. They haven't really been able to get anything going, and I hope Brandon Johnson's able to fill that void some. That's what we were predicting during training camp, and unfortunately, he was also plagued with an injury. So it's really a feel-good story to see him back out there. Let's get into that and use that to talk about what we should be watching for this Sunday. Anything that strikes mind. I think one thing I want to point out and throw it to you, Joey, is we talk a lot about DJ Moore. Sam Darnold and DJ Moore have a ton of chemistry. Are you
No.
going to be expecting something out of them Sunday?
I think that the best out of all these quarterbacks the Panthers have utilized recently, the one that's best utilized DJ Moore is Sam Darnold, right? Like PJ Walker couldn't find him a ton. Baker Mayfield couldn't find him a ton. Sam Darnold best utilized him. Now, does that give him the best opportunity to win? I don't know, because there's a lot more to the game, right? Sam Darnold is also, to go along with that, well, I think he's the biggest playmaker on the team at the quarterback position. He's also the one that I think is the riskiest, the one that turns the ball over the most. And that's the reason why he was benched last year and isn't starting this year. So I do think there's, some give and takes. I don't prefer one of these quarterbacks more than I do the other, if I'm being honest with you guys. I think Sam Darnold coming off a benching into this game kind of plays into the Broncos' hands. But if I were looking at straight up, it's not, I wouldn't view it that way. The thing I most have to watch for, though, or I'm looking forward to see, because there's not a ton of stuff the Broncos have to look forward to, right? There was one, believe it or not, Broncos country, there was a cornerback in this draft, or in the Patrick Surtain draft, taken ahead of him. And that guy just so happens to be playing on the Carolina Panthers by the name of J.C. Horn. I want to see who has the best game. I want to see who has a better game. They're both playing quarterbacks that have had very bad seasons, right? Sam Darnold is his first start. Russell Wilson hasn't been playing good this year. I want to see which one makes a big play. I think it'll be exciting to see. These are two guys that came into NFL with a ton of hype. J.C. Horn obviously missed last year with an injury, but is playing really good this year. Patrick Surtain, a lot of people's consensus, it almost feels like number one corner in the league. I want to see who has the best performance. Would you guys look forward to that? Anything with that little matchup there, even though they both play defense, I guess?
What a silly little question, Joey. Of course, I'm looking forward to it. It's a bounce back back game for Patrick Surtain. I think he'll have a better time out there with these receivers, not going up against Devontae Adams, although I am considering a big defensive game. So I think it's obviously the one that you want to watch. I think that's the most exciting storyline going into this, because it's not exciting to think about Sam Darnold against Russell Wilson. Zach, how do you think that matchup's going to end up? Who has the better defensive game, J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain?
Man, it's tough to say. They've both got, I think, relatively easy matchups. I think Surtain's is a little easier. I think he's the better player, so I'd highlight him. But just highlighting what Joey said about, I think he's a lot of people's top cornerback right now. Deontay Lee, who, in terms of analyzing NFL defense, is about as smart as they come in my book. Like, knows all the really nitty gritty X's and O stuff that's way over my head. I'm a huge fan of his analysis. Was to put out a quick list over the holidays of, the best defensive players in the league. And I think he had Aaron Donald on a shelf of his own, Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons in tier 2. And then tier 3 was like TJ Watt, Patrick Surtain.
There was another edge rusher. Nick Bosa. And then there was one more guy, but and Fred Warner.
Fred Warner, that was the one. So you're looking at one inside linebacker, in that group of 7? There's one inside linebacker, a few edge rushers, one defensive tackle, and one cornerback. And Surtain's the one cornerback. That's pretty cool in terms of like being a truly game-changing defensive talent. I think he'll win that matchup for sure. And I'm going to have my eyes on J.C. Horn for another reason, which I'm sure we'll get.
Yeah, no, I will say there's also another Broncos connection with the Panthers there that I just will throw out there real quick. Jeremy Chin, a player I really liked coming out of the draft. Steve Atwater's nephew, safety, playing for the Panthers. Big physical freak show of a guy, a lot like Steve Atwater, same position and all. So that's just something I'll throw out there as well.
Love it. Absolutely do. Zach, what are you watching for this Sunday?
What I'm watching for, am I? I'm not. What I'm watching for, sorry, I was pulling up stats and was worried I was muted. I am watching for Cortland Sutton. I am really curious to see how he rebounds. I feel like the slump was very real. And these last 2 weeks, he's shown some signs of coming out of it. You've just seen some more of that winning at the catch point, making big plays, or maybe not big plays on the level you'd expect to see from Cortland Sutton. And I'm not saying he's returning to 2019 form or anything, but I think he's returning closer to the form we saw earlier in the year. Because that slump in the middle of the season was bad. He was a bad starting wide receiver. And I think now he's returning towards being at least a help to the offense. And I'm really curious to see how that continues this week. I won't pick him for my player of the game because he's going to have a brutal matchup. He's going up against J.C. Horn, who is a dang good cornerback, even if he's not better than Surtain. And he's got Russell Wilson at quarterback, who I think, is maybe, as we talked about yesterday, he's maybe playing fine in recent weeks, but it's not superstar Russell Wilson. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Cortland Sutton. You did it against shoddy secondaries in Tennessee and Las Vegas. Show us it's not just the quality of secondary you're playing against. Show us you can be an asset to this team going forward. Because let's be real, during the middle stretch of the season, he was not an asset to this team. Based on pure talent, I don't think you'd be excited about starting him once Tim Patrick comes back. Just show us still something there for us to be excited about, because I love Cortland Sutton and I would love it to be there.
That J.C. Horn Cortland Sutton matchup is really interesting too, right? Just because of how physical J.C. Horn is. For those that don't know, he is one of the most physical corners you will ever see. He's going to jam you at the line. He's going to get in your face. He's an awesome shit talker. Like, that's the type of corner you're dealing with J.C. Horn. Like, so for a guy that I want to see more of getting physical and being that physically dominant receiver that we once saw, where it was like, if the ball's in the air, I'm coming down with it. I'm bigger than you. I'm going to beat you to the catch point. If you get a hand on the football, I don't really care because I got my 2 on it and you're not getting it away from me. It'll be a fun matchup there. It's going to be a little telling, honestly, I think.
Yeah, and I love that you highlighted it because it's so true. Cortland Sutton's game is all about winning those moments of contact at the catch point, off of press, all that stuff. Same thing with J.C. Horn. It was hard to scout him in college because all he did was press college receivers at the line and they wouldn't go anywhere. And it's like, I don't know if this is sustainable at the NFL level. Guess what it is? It's super sustainable. He's been great with it. So if Cortland Sutton's going to be the same old Cortland Sutton, this is going to be a tough test for him to, I guess, prove that he could still be that same guy.
It's either going to bring the best out of Cortland Sutton or it's going to be the adverse. And what we're going to have to discuss on Monday is, does that affect Cortland Sutton's stock up when you're going against a cornerback of that caliber? Because I don't think it's fair to take away from Cortland Sutton if he gets absolutely just dismantled there.
Yeah,
I think a little, because you're given, or at least I am personally, in my stock up and everything, I'm giving Cortland Sutton flowers for beating up on Tennessee's second, third string corners. I'm giving him flowers for beating up on the worst pass defense in football, the Raiders, and saying, hey, it looks like he might be coming out of this slump. So if all of a sudden you lay an egg against J.C. Horn, I don't think it's DEFCON 0 for, or DEFCON 1 or whatever for Cortland Sutton, but I think it would be a little, okay, maybe the exciting thing we saw these last 2 weeks really was just a product of competition.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Go ahead, Joey.
No, and then even the other matchup, right? Because it's C.J. Henderson on the other side. I doubt they're going to have J.C. Horn following Cortland Sutton around. So he's going to see multiple matchups. But C.J. Henderson, quite the opposite of J.C. Horn, I would say, in a lot of ways. A lack of physicality. but movement skills off the charts. Right? That's the way I would say it. You're not going to outrun him. You're not going to outmove him. If you're cutting right or cutting left, JC Horn's going to be that guy right in your pocket type of guy. He's so quick. He's so fast. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Both matchups are a little interesting for different reasons, right? So it's going to be both ways. It'll be an interesting game for Courtland Sutton.
I'm going to use this opportunity instead of doing what to watch for is. I think it ties directly into player of the game. So we're going to transition by talking about both of them. The secondary struggled against the Raiders. And I think what happened there was Josh McDaniels was able to isolate a lot of the weaknesses there. And I hope it was an absolute fluke because this Broncos defense has been the shining part of the entire Broncos team. I'm hoping that the issues in the secondary have been worked out. We obviously saw Patrick Surtain suffer in a couple of plays, but thankfully for Frankie for breaking that down for us. We were able to see exactly what happened. Kareem Jackson also stumbled a bit against the Raiders offense. I'm really hoping that because Evero is doing a tremendous job at adapting and evolving his game plans, every time something seems to go wrong, it's almost like they fixed it in the next game. I hope that those issues are ironed out. I'm looking for a big game either from PJ Locke or Damari Mathis because I think they've been those players who have stepped up in adversity with injuries plaguing both of those rooms. So I'm hoping to see really big games out of both of them. And I think in tandem, that would be really exciting for this Broncos team and this defense, kind of elevating those younger players who need to have bigger impact games. It also ties into my bold prediction from yesterday's show, needing to have more turnovers and defensive scores than touchdowns scored by Russell Wilson. So those guys are the two that I'm looking at. I know it's unfair to pick two of them, but I think you really have to isolate them as the standouts for this game.
Yeah, those have been, you said it best. Like those two are standout depth pieces. And I'm not even sure I'm considering Damari Mathis depth anymore. He's just like a really solid player at this point. I need to see more out of PJ Locke, and I'm not faulting PJ Locke, right? I just don't think he's had the opportunity to show a ton. I would love to see more PJ Locke.
Even over Kareem.
Exactly. Even if it's over for Kareem Jackson a little bit, the Broncos don't have anything to lose at this point. I think the season's done. I want to see some of these younger guys that possibly have something to prove with the Broncos could re-up on a contract. The Broncos can see what they have for the future. Because at this point, that's really, really what matters. I would like to see what PJ Locke has. But I think you nailed that. Yeah, two guys that I would also like to see have great performances for sure.
The Broncos have nothing in their nickel right now. Kareem Jackson's best play at this point in his career as a safety is close to the line of scrimmage. Flip him in PJ Locke. Oh, and the worst stuff with Kareem Jackson is when he's asked to cover a deep half or a deep quarter or a deep third. Let's remove that. Let's stop asking him to do that. Let's ask him to do what he's good at and stop asking him to do what he's bad at. I know he's the defensive captain and it's a little weird, but nickel defense is the new base. I don't think that's making him not a starter. I think that's making him like most defensive players that rotate in and out based off of the situation. I think it's fine. He's still a defensive leader. If this guy's been in the NFL for 10 years, 12 years, something like that, and he's been a defensive captain for a lot of those, he's an adult. Like we forget that football players are people. He can understand, like they're very competitive people, but I don't think he'd just like blow up the locker room because you're like, hey, this might be best for the team. I think he's a mature person and wouldn't like drive the Broncos locker room into a brick wall because he rightfully lost his starting job.
I don't think that's a concern whatsoever. I don't think that's a concern whatsoever, but I think the chemistry that he and Justin Simmons have just reading each other out there on the field.
It's not helping. It's not helping. It's not helping.
We don't know how much it's helping until
that's fair, but it's not paying dividends. It's not the pay resulting in positive outcomes for the Broncos. Maybe that's covering up even more mistakes that would be on the field. But what is 6 games of Kareem Jackson starting at safety giving you? Nothing. What is 6 games of PJ Locke giving you? Maybe you unearth a potential solution at safety, which you're going to have to find this offseason. You could remove that from the shopping list by playing PJ Locke 6 games.
Yeah,
what do you have to gain from not doing it?
I mean,
It's
well,
period.
for sure. That's also the point. But I mean, but to their prior point, like with the Broncos do also have Caden Stearns. The safety position is a weird one for the Broncos this next offseason.
But Stearns has his injury stuff. That's a serious concern. They're going to be looking at safety this offseason. Hopefully it's not another, like, it'll pain me to burn more picks there, but the DTY pick didn't work out. The Jamar Johnson pick didn't work out. And then Caden Stearns has his injury thing, which is a concern. It would be good to know if PJ Locke could be a potential starter at safety next year, or at least a depth option that you have a ton of confidence in, and now you don't have to invest in much at the reserves there. Like, Kareem Jackson's a good story, but he's been hurting this defense in recent weeks, and the team stands more to gain by his backup playing, so why not do it?
We'll continue to isolate the position group, as we move on. And you'll want to make sure you're paying attention to Thursday's episodes of Let's Talk Broncos, where Joey Richards and Frankie Abbott will be breaking down all the positions of need for the Broncos heading towards the draft. I know it seems like it's really not that far away, but guys, it's going to be here before you know it. So you'll want to tune in to get the breakdown there, where I'm sure for the rest of the season, we'll be talking about the different positional changes in the Denver Broncos secondary as that begins to kind of, it's going to work itself out, or it's going to become an even bigger of an issue. So I'm sure we'll touch on it when that does happen. But guys, player of the game, who wants to go next?
I'll go. I'm going to go with, I was kind of between two players at the beginning here. Why not go? I think this is a Justin Simmons game. That's at the end of the day, that's my safe bet, and I think I want to win this one. If I'm looking for a player that is going to be the beneficiary off of bad Sam Darnold throws, it's going to be Justin Simmons, right? I think Justin Simmons has a nose for the ball. He's obviously an amazing safety, a really good safety for the Broncos. He's going to get into spots. Sam Darnold's going to try to fit some tight window throws. I think that at the end of the day, Justin Simmons is going to be on the receiving end of an interception or something like that. So that's why I'm going to go with Justin Simmons this game.
Yeah, I love it. He cleans everything up for this Broncos defense, and there's going to be plenty of slop thrown out onto the field by Sam Darnold, I believe. They talked about it in yesterday's show. He is one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in the sport. And, yeah, Justin Simmons, I think, makes sense to be the beneficiary of that, because he's going to be roaming the field, and it's something he's done his whole career. I absolutely love that pick.
What I really hope to see, because we're all saying the same thing, Sam Darnold has a propensity of throwing it away to really inopportune moments. What I'm hoping, though, is that what we don't follow is the trend of the Denver Broncos defense, or the offense rather, being able to capitalize on those turnovers. The only way that it makes out and it works out here for this team is if the Denver Broncos defense scores a touchdown, because otherwise I don't have a whole lot of hope that the Broncos offense can capitalize off of turnovers from the defense. Zach, who is your player of the game?
I've got to win you back over, Bree. I've got to win you back over. I've been a little mean. I've been talking bad about some players. And you know what? I'm throwing a bone to Greg Dulcich. I think he's going to get back on track this week. Last 2 weeks have been a little quieter for him, but he's still playing like a dang good tight end, especially good rookie tight end, if not a historic one anymore. And I don't know. I think you can exploit this Panthers defense. It's a unique scheme, and they do have a fair deal of talent. Shaq Thompson does an excellent job against tight ends. But I don't know. It just seems like Greg Dulcich is due for a big week. This offense is down weapons. I think Cortland Sutton is going to have his hands full with J.C. Horn, and Russell Wilson's going to have to throw the ball to someone. And I think it's a good chance Greg Dulcich is the beneficiary of that. And I know we're all low on Russell Wilson, and he's not good and everything. And that 10-win piece that dropped today or yesterday, I read it today. People should go check that out. That outlines a lot of the stuff we've talked about on here about how it looks to be more rust than other people. All that stuff still stands. But producing, which is different from what it looks like on film and everything, he's been producing like a mid-level quarterback over the past month. So if he's producing like a mid-level quarterback, those balls are going to go to someone, and I think they'll go to Dulcich. He's a good player.
I love the pandering, Zach. You immediately changed my entire vibe. I'm bought in. I'm kidding. This is the point of Let's Talk Broncos. We're here to discuss the ins and outs, the goods, the bads, the criticism that is earned, and that's what we do here. But what I want to note for Greg Dulcich is his ability to create separation and be able to block plus get open. I really hope that he sees more receptions and more targets just in general, not at the back of his head, not at his shins, not 3 feet away. I know he's a long-bodied receiver, but or a long-bodied tight end, but there needs to be a chance given in his direction because he's successful when there is. So I'm looking forward to that. And if that happens, I'll walk away a happy camper. That's really all it takes. Joey.
No, yeah, I think Greg Dulcich is a good one. But guys, I will have to say this. How much of this Greg Dulcich coming back to earth is just Russell Wilson not being able to find him over the middle of the field? Like that's kind of an issue. Like I don't know if it's Greg Dulcich coming back to earth or if it's Russell Wilson just like because even in
it's a little bit of both.
I think that pretty much primarily his yards even have been coming off of him. Like I remember him running up the sidelines and catching a ball. Like that's kind of how he's going to have to get his yards for the most part. I think it's going to have to be in creative ways. I don't think Greg Dulcich could just be utilized.
There was no reason for him to be out there
really and be a super productive player. I just don't see it.
I think he totally can be because we saw it in the Jaguars game. We've already seen it happen with Russell Wilson.
But is that sustainable? That's more so my point. Through a season, is that sustainable? No,
I don't think that's inherently Russell Wilson. He was playing by a good bit like the best rookie tight end since the 1970s. Like, and to be honest, the eye test doesn't match that production. I think he's been a very good player, but I don't think anyone would be like, oh yeah, he's been better than Gronk's rookie year. Or yeah, he's been better than Kyle Pitts' rookie year, even though he was on pace to outproduce it. Like
who was the quarterback?
No.
In those instances. I think that has a lot to do with it.
No, I don't. I think he's been a very good player, but who's watching Greg Dulcich? Honestly, and correct me if I'm wrong, who's watching Greg Dulcich and saying, oh my God, this is a generational transformative tight end? He was producing it like it for 3 weeks.
I don't think
and I think that was always unsustainable to an extent. And some of that's the quarterback. Totally. Some of it's Dulcich too, though.
Okay, for sure. But you have to remember, Zach, like
we're faulting him
quarterback that took on. You traded first-round pick for Jimmy Graham and Jimmy Graham went to go into bottom half of his career, never succeeded again. You never saw him at that level again, right when he got traded to Seattle. Like this is the type of quarterback we're talking about with tight ends. We went into the season knowing that Russell Wilson couldn't use tight ends that well. And then the generational talk was always a little crazy because
that's what I'm saying. He came back down to earth from the generational peak that was always a little crazy.
Yeah, but he's still being missed. That's
totally
like a real thing. That's why he's been
to earth. It's both. Yes. Yes. You don't think there's been any like drop off from generational play
because he's not getting targeted.
But do you agree that production doesn't just automatically mean he's a generational player? Like there's a difference between production and actually how good you are.
What I was saying was a production based point. Let me reiterate it. He was producing like a generational player. He was. He no longer is. He came back down to earth from that generational pace.
Yeah, sure, but he's still like. But I think that. So here's my point. Like the reason he's not getting that many yards, and I'm only going on the down to earth point. Like he has not been targeted over the middle. Like I don't know if there's numbers we can look up on this.
There is. Like, he's averaging more targets, or just as many. He was averaging 4.5, and then. His most targeted game is the Jets. So I think there's truth to the point. I'm not trying to besmirch that. Russell Wilson's missing him. That point's never been debated. I think he's also dropped off a little in Russell Wilson games, right? His most productive were the first two when he saw 4 targets on average. So 8 total. His least productive games with Russell Wilson have been the last two, when he saw 9 total targets. So there's been no drop off in targets. There's been a drop off in production.
So I guess I would ask what and I don't want to get into this really, but I would ask what he's doing worse, or is the defense keying in on him, or
was the defense is just
bad at the beginning,
he
or
was
what's
getting
going
double
on?
teamed at a certain point. Of course,
yes, he's getting more attention and coverage, and as a result, his production has fallen back down to earth.
You know who else got double plays? Gronk.
I don't think he's. Let me settle this down. Let me settle this down.
I'm not saying he is.
Greg Dulcich is not a generational tight end. I do think the production was always going to be inflated because Russell Wilson was never going to target him like those first 2 games were, or not target him, but find him like he did in those first 2 games.
He's targeting him at the same level and finding him at the receptions aren't dropping off either.
Okay,
he's not making the same big plays. It's just come back down to earth a little bit. It was a point about math.
Let's argue about this on another. Let's see what happens on Sunday, and then on Monday, if we need to revisit it and have a discussion about it, we'll devote like another 12 minutes to Greg Dulcich. I'm all about it. Like, I'm not going to fight that. But what I do want to get to before we get a little too muddy in these waters, love the points, appreciate the conversation. Broncos Country, you can chime in at any point that you want. Hit us up in the thread. Leave us a comment. Actually, join the Discord and have this conversation with us. Zach, if it's another Greg Dulcich point, I'm removing you from the show.
You're going to remove me from the show. Here's where it is. Over the last 2 games, he is averaging less than 4 yards after the catch per reception. Those first 2 games with Russell Wilson, he was averaging 8, over 8.
How many receptions? How many receptions?
In those first 2, 6, over the last 2, 5. So again, it's right in that same ballpark.
Because defenses got on.
But we agree not all targets are built the same, correct? Like if you're wide open, or if the quarterback finds you in a beneficiary spot, during a game.
Russell Wilson loves to throw into double coverage.
My comment was entirely math based. The numbers were bigger. They were historically big. Now they're not historically big.
Totally. But
I think he'll produce well.
I'm saying that Greg Dulcich is the exact same player then that he is now. That's my only argument. Nothing has changed with Greg Dulcich.
Yeah, I don't think he's
nothing has changed.
A worse player. I think he's getting more attention, and as a result, he's come back down to earth off that historic pace.
We were all saying the same thing like normal, but just in different ways. Also, take your funky numbers boy, and get out of here. There's more to football than that. Let's get into the score prediction. I'm going to go first just because I have a pretty interesting theory that's going to work its way out here. Panthers-Broncos comes down to the final minutes, much like it has in a bunch of other games, 13-13 tied. It will go into overtime, and the Broncos will lose to a possession touchdown. Panthers would be, 16-13, or what does the math work out there? It would be 13-13, then it would be
19-13.
19-13. There we go. Because you don't get
13. Okay.
Man, maybe if you spent more time on numbers girl, you could do 13 plus 6.
Well, because I was like, I almost went 13 plus 7 and almost made an idiot out of myself because I was like, that does not how it happens. I do, because I don't have that dog in me. I don't have that killer instinct. I can't make that happen on the cuff, off the fly. All right, Joey.
I'm sorry, Bree.
I'm going 17-14. Broncos win. They get past 16 points. Which is good, but at the end of the day, I think field position probably helps. I think because of turnovers, I think Sam Darnold is going to be due for a couple turnovers, not just because he is such a turnover prone quarterback, but because he's thrown in mid-season, and you know what I mean. It's even more of a difficult situation for him going against a really, really tough Broncos defense. So 17-14 is my pick.
I think, again, this game might be weirdly high scoring for the Broncos. I think the score won't match how the offense looks. I think it'll be a solid offensive game that doesn't produce a lot, solid, just mid, like it's been in recent weeks. That once again doesn't produce a whole lot of points because Carolina's defense is dang good, especially they're good at playing zone. And what can Russell Wilson not beat? Zone coverage. That's another point on my Greg Dulcich thing. He's good against zone. And I think the Broncos will need it. So I think it'll kind of be fairly low scoring in a sense, in terms of like maybe points per possession or something, or you'll see a high rate of 3 and outs. But I also think the Broncos are going to get a lot of short fields and maybe even a defensive touchdown. And that's a nice way to fluff up the score a little. And I also have to ride with that Russell Wilson prediction, which now the math on it isn't really adding up in that. I'll say Broncos 23, Panthers 10. I think that's about as close to a blowout as we can get with this squad. It's hard to blow teams out when you're capped out at 23 points. 23-10.
Love it. You know what else I love? Signables. Signables are a cool new way to display your fanhood in your office, your home, or your fan cave. Signables are flat footballs with digitally printed signatures on them of your favorite players and your favorite teams. World Cup week, so you got to get in on that. We also have Aaron Rodgers that Zach has proudly displayed on his wall behind his setup. They're a great gift for your favorite football fan this holiday season, and you can collect your favorite player or your favorite team on signables.com. No, thank you.
Signables.
Putting out that Vanna White vibe going on. If you haven't already picked up your signables, I highly suggest you do so. Christmas is only a month away. I just looked down. It's 11/26. I cannot believe it, guys. We're almost to the end of this year. Get on your signables right now. Joey, I think I'm going to get you the Josh Allen. I wish they had a Justin Fields so that
I could get the Justin Fields.
You could be the Bears fandom that you want to be. Zach, I think the Aaron Rodgers one is just appropriate.
I got you 10 Russell Wilson signables each.
I'm just going to line them up in the back.
Yeah.
No, use them as target practice. I don't want anybody coming for me. All right. I've been the same level of hater the entire time. It hasn't changed. This is not the season outcome has not affected me whatsoever.
There we go.
Joey's question of the day.
All right, guys. Who can you guys name the 3 starting receivers on the 2015 Broncos? I'm pretty much asking you for the third, but I want to know the 3.
Oh, it's tough to remember. So Super Bowl team. Oh, I do think I know the. Oh, do I know the third? How are you measuring third? By production?
I'm just going off the Broncos depth chart.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, so it's DT.
Mm-hmm.
It's Emmanuel Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the third. Ooh, I'm between 2. I think the third was Andre Caldwell.
Okay, who's your other guess?
Benny Fowler.
It's Andre Caldwell. It's Andre Caldwell. I just wanted to know who the other guess was out of curiosity. It's
Andre Caldwell. Benny Fowler got play in that offense too, but I didn't remember how big the role.
They have, yeah. What an interesting wide receiver room. Behind him, Cody Latimer, Jordan Norwood.
Cody, that's the one I was thinking.
Cody Latimer, yeah.
That was his second year as a second-round pick, and it was like, oh, second-year jump, and he still couldn't get on the field.
Does anyone remember Isaiah Burse by chance? He was on that team. He was like a return.
No, you know who I remember?
The return man.
Yeah, Isaiah Burse, Benny Fowler, obviously. They had plenty of wide receivers on here. Jordan Taylor was part of that team.
Who had the big return? Who had the big return in the Super Bowl? Was that
Jordan Norwood, I believe.
Jordan Norwood, yeah.
Yeah. Jordan Norwood is the returner, I think. Was he the returner for most that season, or was it Isaiah Burse? I don't remember, but I know
Isaiah Burse came in and filled in for a minute, but I think it was mainly Norwood.
Interesting.
That feels like an absolute lifetime ago.
Yeah, right? Since the Broncos won their Super Bowl, it definitely does.
Worst hangover after winning a Super Bowl too. No team has had 7 years like this. So good on you, Broncos country, continuing to come to the games and everything. Definitely sold our soul for that last one, but hopefully curse gets righted soon. Bree, work your magic, burn some sage.
I'm already on it. I do it every single day. Get all that negative energy out of here. And on that note, we will be out of here. We'll catch you on Monday for a brand new episode of Let's Talk Broncos, where we break down, hopefully, an appropriate result for this Denver Broncos team against the Carolina Panthers. I'm Brie Maestis. You can find me on Twitter, Brie Maestis303. You can find JR Drafts at JR Drafts, Zach_Seegers, milehighsports.com. Catch us every day there. Thursdays, you're going to want to check out Frankie Abbott and Joey Richards as they break down the draft. I already ran it once, but you're going to want to tune in because they have to do something with the picks that they have. I know it's not a whole lot, but things can change between here and now. April will be among us before we can even admit it, because it's already November and soon it's going to be Happy New Year, and we'll be here with you the entire way. You get, I don't even know, 7 more weeks of us. Yeah. Fantastic. It's been a
we're going off season. There's no escape, Bree.
Well, I mean the everyday jam. Every day during the off season would be a little crazy. We'll dial it a little bit back, but we're happy to be on this journey with all of you guys. Any parting words for the audience?
Yes, everyone follow me at JR Drafts. Listen to Frankie and I show that will be brought to you Let's Talk Broncos exclusive. So make sure you're following the Let's Talk Broncos Facebook. If you listen through Facebook, the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube is popping nowadays. Make sure you're on there. Yeah, that's all I really have. Zach, how about you, man?
Yeah, all my Twitter stuff at Zach_Seegers. There'll be live tweets and fun stats and all sorts of stuff. And then articles. I'm going to have Stock Up, Stock Down immediately. Not immediately, but probably Sunday night after the game, diving into all that nitty gritty stuff. Stay tuned here. Join the Discord. That's been a lot of fun to vent about all this stuff. And yeah, hang in there, Broncos country.
Yeah, exactly. Hang in there. We'll be with you soon and the entire rest of the way. Have a good evening, and we'll speak to you on Monday. Good night, Broncos country.